was an era when Yamaha made the decision to construct more than merely a superbike. It resolved to craft a legend. The FZR1000 was not only incredibly fast, it was also intimidating. A motorcycle so advanced, it appeared to originate from the future. With an engine that propelled like a locomotive, and a chassis that demonstrated to the world how a powerful motorcycle ought to be managed. For many, it was the first time they felt what true power was between their legs. Today, we return to that golden era to relive the story of the Yamaha FZR1000, the machine that changed the rules forever. In the late 1980s, liter superbikes were a wild, untamed domain. The Suzuki GSXR1000 offered huge power, but its chassis had notable flex, and the tires then couldn't keep up, making each acceleration an act of faith. Kawasaki, meanwhile, bet on raw, unfiltered brute force, and Honda had not yet introduced the Fireblade. The 1000cc bikes were large, heavy, wide, and required strength, courage, and experience to turn without praying. In that context, liter bikes were machines designed for endless straightaways, not for linking curves with precision. They were like muscle cars without assists, exciting, loud, and dangerously honest. Yamaha, however, had gained prestige with the FZR750 Genesis, a balanced and modern sports bike, and they decided to do something, scale that same philosophy to the 1,000 cubic centimeters. The Yamaha FZR Genesis GH appeared in the late 80s as an intelligent response to the chaos of liter bikes, featuring a 4-cylinder engine with 989 cubic centimeters and 5 valves per cylinder. This was a technical obsession of Yamaha to breathe better at high RPMs. Delivering around 130 horsepower when that figure was still intimidating. It wasn't just about power, it was about how it delivered it in a usable and progressive way, something very rare for a liter bike of that era. The real danger of the FZR meal was psychological. It had so much power, grip, and serenity at high speeds that it made you go faster and faster without giving you any warning signs. It wasn't a bike that scared you into slowing down. The motorcycle made you feel everything was fine, even as the speedometer hit serious speeds. Many riders pushed their limits not because of the Yamaha, but because the bike performed so well that any mistake was human. In 1989, the EXUP arrived. It was one of those inventions that changed the game quietly. Yamaha introduced it in the late 80s to solve the biggest problem with liter bikes. They were sluggish at low speeds and wild at high speeds. The EXUP valve, located in the exhaust manifold, would partially close at low and mid-range RPM, increasing back pressure and improving torque. The FZR1000 exhibited remarkably clean acceleration and demonstrated a capacity to pull strongly well before reaching 7,000 RPM, a feat that was nearly impossible during its era. The introduction of the FZR1000 EXUP signified the precise moment when Yamaha ceased its experimental phase and started to truly dominate with over 145 genuine horsepower and absolute insanity. By the late 1980s, this motorcycle not only gained power but also improved how it delivered it. The Deltabox chassis was meticulously fine-tuned to endure exceptionally high speeds without any unusual flexing. The weight distribution was precisely optimized, and the suspensions were carefully adjusted with genuine stability in mind, not merely catalog figures. It was a liter-class motorcycle that did not feel cumbersome, but rather surprisingly precise. In the unavoidable comparison with the GSXR, the distinction was philosophical. The Suzuki placed its wager entirely on sheer brutality, ferocious accelerations, and an intimidating demeanor that commanded continuous respect. The Yamaha, on the other hand, took you fast almost without warning. You entered curves more aggressively, exited with more control, and maintained high speeds for longer without struggling with the bike. It did not instill intimidation, it persuaded, and for numerous riders, that was even more perilous. Compared to the European rivals of the time, which were large, heavy, and still somewhat rough, the FZR-X seemed like a machine from the future. It was more compact, more stable, and more coherent as a whole. Not only did it accelerate powerfully, it braked better, cornered better, and conveyed a sense of solidity that raised the standard for leader superbikes. With this bike, Yamaha demonstrated that true superiority was not in violence, but in absolute control. Between 1991 and 1995, Yamaha entered a stage of absolute maturity with the FZR1000. Instead of chasing absurd figures or radical changes, it decided to refine what was already extraordinary. It improved aerodynamics for greater stability on long straights, fine-tuned the weight distribution, and worked on the rigidity of the Deltabox chassis so that the bike remained precise even at speeds that were intimidating in the 90s. It wasn't a revolution, it was intelligent evolution, surgical, almost arrogant in its confidence. The brakes received key improvements to match the real speed the bike could sustain, and the suspensions were adjusted with truly fast riders in mind, not just technical specifications. Yamaha comprehended something crucial. When you possess a masterpiece, do not spoil it by attempting to reinvent it. Consequently, the FZR1000 transitioned from being a feared superbike to becoming the definitive benchmark of the segment, serving as the conceptual foundation that years later would give rise to the R and mark a pivotal turning point in the history of liter bikes. Unlike numerous superbikes of its era, the FZR1000 never bore the negative reputation of being unstable or treacherous. There were no frequent tales of wobbling, overly soft chassis, or unpredictable responses. Its geometry was logical, its Deltabox rigid, and its behavior consistent even at very high speeds. Yamaha did not improvise. It meticulously designed an expansive motorcycle that felt firmly planted, with a highly communicative front end and stability that inspired confidence where others began to fall apart. The real danger of the FZR1000 was psychological. It had so much power, so much grip, and such serenity at high speeds that it made you go faster and faster without giving you any warning signs. It was not a motorcycle that intimidated you into reducing speed. It was one that assured you everything was perfectly fine while the speedometer ventured into serious territory. That is why numerous riders exceeded their own limits, not due to the Yamaha itself, but because the machine executed its performance so exceptionally well that any mistake was invariably human. The legacy of the Yamaha FZR1000 goes far beyond its numbers or its era. Without it, the concept of the modern superbike simply wouldn't exist as we know it today. It was the first leader bike that demonstrated power and agility could coexist without fear, laying the technical and philosophical foundations that would later give life to the R. The Deltabox chassis, overall balance, and usability marked a before and after in the industry. The FZR1000 changed the mindset of engineers and riders. It wasn't just about speed in a straight line anymore, but mastering everything. Now it's a cult motorcycle, sought by collectors, respected by technicians, and admired by those who know its historical importance. It wasn't just a great Yamaha, it was the turning point that forced the whole world to rethink what a true superbike should be. And if you want to meet its successor, the R, click on this video.